This is the Spinner Rack.
So welcome everybody to Spinner Rack. This is Game of Thrones discussion. This final series, this final episode, like what the friggin' Goonie Google went on. I've been so pissed off. I've been so upset. I've been so bananas out of the way. I just don't even know what to make of it. So look, I'm gonna pass the ball to PD.
Why would you pass it to me?
Then shoot him down.
He knows.
Then shoot him down.
Okay. But the problem is that I have a hard problem with the names.
Game of Thrones.
So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it the street way, right? I'm gonna have to do it the street way.
No, do the street
way.
credit,
I'm gonna do
baby.
how I would do with my friends growing up. All right. So first off, the dragon lady. She like burned down what's her name?
Dany,
the dragon lady. She just burns down like the whole kingdom. And then Cersei, this is in the episode before the last one. And they're like, no, please stop. Please, no, we could talk it out. She's like, I ain't talking it out. Nobody's on my side. Nobody here for me. Jon Snow blew it. The little guy, it's okay to call him a little guy. Tyrion, little guy is over there. He's going behind my back. Everybody went behind my back.
and my girl got killed.
I gotta know what I gotta do. I lost a dragon.
And my girl.
Think about this. No, we're not getting to that yet. We're talking about the episode before first. Because she was. I'm saying everyone is against her, saying that she's mad, right? And I don't want to get into women mad, women with power mad, this and the other. They went against her, and she said in the episode, all these people didn't follow what I said. So this is a show of power, saying, all right, we're against them. We're not going to talk it out. We're going to do it the nice way. We're not surrender. We're going to murder everybody. So then Jon Snow, all of them are like, you know what? Don't mess with me. And that's what happened. So then they all, I can't go that far. They all lame out and they all still working behind her back. That's what she got mad about in the first place. Did she not get mad about them in the first place? They still going behind her back.
Yeah, I mean, she lost all the people that were close to her, all the people that made her, that made her, bigged her up. Because when we started her arc starts off in the very beginning of the whole story, and she's basically sold as a slave to a warrior, to a barbarian warrior, and she becomes a queen from then. The Khaleesi, and she develops in a character where she not only becomes a queen, she learns how to rule, and not only that, she expects to rule. She is born to rule.
And
she's a ruler.
This is what I'm talking about. Keep going. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So what happens is that she loses her closest friend, Melisandre, who started her journey with her, Jorah, who was her armman, her companion. Mm-hmm. She loses her dragon, which was her child, and she finds that her advisors are giving her bad advice, or she can't trust them. And lastly, Jon Snow, the man that she falls in love with, rejects her because, and it's never clearly stated why, but it seems because she's his aunt, and in the North, it doesn't look as though they married their aunts and stuff like that.
Well, let's also remember that she told Jon Snow not to tell them about his history. And
right.
He's
so
like, no, they'll understand.
But you see, Jon Snow, we understand, he has that fault of his father or his uncle, that he got to tell the truth of whatever it is. So he told the truth to his
stuff. That's
but he told the truth to his sisters, and she said, "Don't do it, because the minute you do it, you're gonna kill us." She's gonna basically start something, and she was right, because Sansa basically wanted to be queen of the North. And the minute, and who did she learn from? She learned from Cersei. She learned from Littlefinger that the best way to do things is behind. You don't need to have a sword or arm. You just have to know who to talk to, and that's what she did. She said to Tyrion, Jon Snow is the rightful king. And from there on, all these things started happening. She lost her dragon, which was her child. She lost her ships. She lost her soldiers. She lost her best friend. So.
All right, you given the great background.
Okay, so
but they all went against her.
Yes.
So she has to show them not to mess up anymore.
Well, she says when Jon finally rejects her for love, he says, "You'll always be my queen." So that's one thing we got to understand. Jon will stay loyal to you unless you do something buck wild. But she said, "All right. So if I can't have their love, I'll have them fear me. And so
Yes.
and that's where she comes up there, and she's like, all the struggle she's been, all the things she's done, people have lost. She's lost half her army, and these people aren't even grateful. And so she's like, screw it, I'm gonna burn these suckers down.
Yes.
The problem with that, though, is that
I have no problem with that.
The problem with that is that throughout the series, we've been hinting that she may be one of the greatest heroes in the story, and that's okay because it's either her or
But
John. He or John.
she's queen now.
He or John. Well,
It's a different thing being a hero and a queen.
She's been a queen from basically the first.
But I'm saying now she's officially queen because she took over the whole thing. Right. We were okay with Cersei burning up all of that land, so she basically did a show of power.
So
just
what
like
they
Cersei.
said is that she basically killed, in destroying the city, parts of the city, she basically killed as much people, way more people than Cersei, more people in the wars, and more people than as much as the White Walkers. So that's still, she becomes almost as great a villain as the White Walkers.
No. They were enemies, right?
You're right, but I'm saying
they were, but there's no but after right.
Wrong then.
So, there's no but.
You
don't change. You're fighting your enemies, right?
Right.
And then you count the numbers. Oh, wait a second. That count is larger than these other guys. We now have to turn on you. No. Your enemies are your enemies. You do with them as you will.
Right. But innocents die. She didn't just shoot soldiers. She killed innocent people. And that's what Tyrion was constantly advising. If the bell rings,
this is medieval times.
If the bell rings,
chivalry is dead. You know what chivalry being dead.
But the battle was over. It was over.
No. She decides when it's over.
Oh my gosh, she's playing devil's advocate.
No, they try to go behind her back and talk people out of surrendering. Right. That's not what needed because they would still decide the things and not. All right, so we got through because this is all the crux of what people have been arguing about, and most people, everyone tries to do the soft thing of killed too many people, so she's got to be punished. So in TV you punish. That's the oldest thing in history, and of course what happened? They decided the people that were against her. Was it Target, the little guy? What's his name again?
Tyrion. Lannisters,
thank you. Tyrion is saying, you got to do it. He's all captured. She's like, no. She wrapped him up and said, I'm putting you and I'm killing you. I'm taking you out. You're just gonna sit here and suffer until I decide to do it. And then what? Jon C. How does Tyrion talk Jon Snow? Say, you got to do it. He's like, and he been swindling people all his time on the show.
Tyrion?
And now, yeah.
No, because you know what?
No, you did a soft. No, because you're like saying there's some reason to it.
No, there is a logical reason. I agree?
Logical. Has he done some understanding? Look, if you don't trust someone that's that underhanded.
Look, Tyrion. When we first see her in the last episode, there's a big banner. Just like how the Nazis would put a banner in front of a building. And the banner basically is like the Targaryen. She's like, what does she tell her guys there? Well, guys, this is just the very first stop to conquering the world. And that's what she does. And so I'm all for this is like a different development here, bro. This revolution is going to continue. She's going to break the chain. And so
she's not King Arthur. This is not King Arthur. You don't need to cut. And what the problem is that they're trying to get to even more King Arthur than King Arthur. This is not that. This is a different thing that we haven't seen. She's ruling.
But Jon is the King Arthur figure if there's anybody to be King Arthur. The hidden king.
But he's going to be with her.
But he doesn't. He doesn't.
No, because what does he do? What does he do?
He rejects her and he kills her. Right? And he kills her because she's a threat.
What does the dragon do? Why doesn't the dragon burn?
Because the dragon knows him.
But look what he did. Yeah, and how did the dragon know the chair is the problem?
Well, according to the producers, it doesn't know per se, but it felt and it just burnt the damn thing down. Because this is the struggle, her whole struggle. They have like an empathic, and this is to get that throne.
So you're saying you're saying when she dies, the fact that the throne drove her crazy and drove people to. So then the dragon is going to take it out on that when I can kill Jon Snow right there. I can kill Jon Snow. I'm a dragon. I'm killing Jon Snow right there.
So that's one of the things that they have. The Targaryens.
This is not the big business that I know.
The Targaryens have the blood of, they call it the blood of the dragon because they've been interbreeding. So their blood, that's how the dragons recognize them.
How do you interbreed? Are they small dragons?
No, you interbreed the people. The people are sleeping. She wasn't. Targaryens marry brother to sister onto niece.
Okay.
You know, so that's how they've been able to keep. And the dragons recognize someone who has the blood, and that's how they're able to ride. A regular person can't just ride a dragon. It has to be someone who is of the blood, basically.
But I'm saying the blood of. You're saying that blood, but how does it relate to being connected to the dragons?
Because with the blood, you can then come to the dragon, and then the dragon will allow you to ride them.
But I'm saying,
to
is
tame
that
them.
The dragon blood in them?
No, the dragon's just the blood.
But how does the dragon know that blood is the blood?
There's a connection because the families have been continually there. Look,
now we lost Dragon Lady. She's dead, right? She's dead.
Jon is in jail.
Jon is in jail because
and Tyrion comes out and says, "We have to choose someone, a new one to choose, and we're going to choose someone with a good story."
No, let's stop because he's making it seem like it wasn't a lot of yapping, and there was a ton of yapping in this episode. He's a prisoner, and he's like out there talking to them, holding court as a prisoner, telling them who should rule. And then there was that one dude, he gets up and he's like, "I should rule," and the girl's like, sit your ass down."
That's what she's like, "Yo, sit your ass down."
She did a total freaking Nino Brown on you. It's like, before I make change on him, like he sat down. So then you have, how is the guy who's in shackles telling you who should be king, right?
Because he's considered the smartest guy in the kingdom.
All right, can they all trust him? Have they been able to trust him?
Remember, he was on their side working with them.
Okay, so at this point, you make sense. So now he knows everything. He knows where the bones are buried, right? So he decides.
But his logic sucked.
Wait a second. So they trust him, and he says, "You know what? My dude got pushed out the window. You the king, because this is closure. This is Hollywood closure."
Your story you have the best story.
No, your story is not the best story.
And I agree with you. That was whackness.
He was supposed to be the ice guy, because remember when the ice guy died, the eyes were connected? I was like, oh.
The three-eyed raven.
If he's connected to the guy who's the ice guy and he comes back, and then we got another fight, we got a whole new series. But no, they decided we're going to get. And that's the thing. There's not closure. This is not. All right, first off, and then they say, what about, and that's in there like, I'm saying, I'm as ordinary as a person watching the show, right?
Yes.
You don't get no more ordinary than me. And I'm saying, wait a second, what about the bloodline? And then like right on cue, the little guy is like, and they say, what about the bloodline? And he's like, bloodline, mixing the bloods, same bloods, that cause crazy. Yes, but then when you card out the guy that can give you no heir to the people, those people that now interested in the democracy, which they don't know what the hell that is, they're like, we need an heir. The problem when you go to all the kingdoms, they've always wanted a legitimate heir of royal blood. That's the whole point of it. They're not going to say like, all right, now we get to vote for it. Like, no, like, what's it?
Well, the whole thing was
here in the United States, they wanted George Washington to continue to rule.
To be king, yes. So look.
So you know that. Why would the people then decide, you know what?
But they decided on democracy.
We didn't get to see what
Washington had the chance to become king and chose against it. He had the army, he could have become king. He didn't.
But wouldn't that be a powerful scene if they decide that the guy got pushed out the window, and they bring him to the people, and they're like, "Get this guy out of here."
And so that is exactly my point. Why one of the things the showrunners didn't do a good job of getting us to Bran, and I think one of the problems, Bran becoming king.
No, they wouldn't give us symbolism of the future
let me
to
say
give you FDR, but FDR had already had his years.
But FDR was charismatic. FDR had
there's that too.
And this is what I'm trying to say.
FDR did everything it took to get there, and then why we weren't okay with.
And he was taking a war. He was handling people. Yes, I got that. But what I'm trying to say, that's what they missed with Bran. I agree with you. But this is why.
There's no but.
This is why there's not a but in the negative, but this is a why. It didn't help the story. Why a lot of people came off the episode and said, that doesn't kind of make sense, because you'd set up two people, Dany and Jon, to be the greatest, and of course they don't get chosen. But the problem we have with Bran throughout the series is that he doesn't really do nothing. He's a three-eyed raven. He knows stuff. And Tyrion's logic, oh, he tells great stories. No, people, if this is really a democracy, people are never going to choose a guy who tells great stories. They're going to tell the guy who connects with them continuously. And the person who would have connected them more, who else better? But Jon, who was the warrior, or Dany, who brought the conquest. And this is where I'm like, I was totally against it. It was such a bad job in bringing the story. They do it after every episode. They do a recap where they explain what happened. And,
I couldn't watch that.
And this is the problem with that. When you do a story, you want to see the recap to get additional flavors and understanding. You shouldn't have to do a recap to explain what just happened. So you did a bad job in doing the show. By your explanation, you're like, oh, that explains it. Look, I'm not knocking it. It's a very complicated business.
No,
it's huge.
I'm knocking it because you're trying to give us symbolism of what the future would become, like we're in a democratic state, right?
Right.
But at the same time, you're dealing with people that aren't interested in that. They're thinking of a king that can rule the kingdom, whether they have a harsh hand or not. Even if the heir is crazy because the inbreeding, they want a legitimate heir. And Bronn ain't the guy.
Bran.
No, I'm going with Bronn because it's like Bronny and LeBron. I'm going with what I want to go with. So Bronn
is another character.
Okay, so Bran.
All right, so
Bran, I think the legitimacy and the people being able to connect to having an heir, that sort of thing would rule him out, and the people would not be happy. If you're giving the people to talk, and then they'd have to do a show of power to say, shut up, he's the ruler. They'd have to do something, the same thing that the Dragon Lady did. So this thing is, people are not going to be happy when you get someone that cannot give you an heir.
Well, I keep saying the heir thing, I think, is irrelevant. I think
it
what happened
is relevant because that's relevant through all that time up until you get to Russia, where they were struggling with legitimacy from the beginning,
so if you have a system where you're saying we're going to elect out of every time there's a position.
People don't understand that yet.
Right, I get that, but I'm saying if they're saying we're setting up a new system, because that's the whole thing. Dany said she's going to break the chain. If the whole system where the rulers of the 7 counties will then elect someone to be their king, yes, eventually there's going to be a problem. But the point is they can do that. You know, they had that in Europe. You had the Holy Roman Empire. It wasn't exact. You know, they have in the book they have something called the Great Council. They can do that. But what I'm trying to get to is that Bran didn't do anything that most of the people would seem. Yes, he has the foreknowledge to know before and after. One of the greatest characters, the character that Bran becomes, in the book, he is the three-eyed raven. Before he's a three-eyed, he's Brandon Rivers. And he basically rules the 7 kingdoms, right? Mm-hmm. And he's an albino. He has a red spot on it that looks like a raven.
Well, he's not a albino.
I know. I'm just trying to say the point is.
That would have been cool than what he became.
People hated him because they figured that he was running. He had magic on the king. And so in those day and age, and this has nothing to do with him being crippled or whatever, is that they wouldn't trust a guy who was so, first of all, outside of himself. He doesn't connect well with people. And, you know, all of a sudden he's going to be king? No, it wasn't going to be like that. Tyrion is saying because he knows everything, he will be able to rule. They had some of the greatest rulers who knew everything, had the most degrees, and they sucked at stuff. You know what I'm trying to say? So my point is that, you know, they did a bad job of developing Bran. They wanted Bran in the system. He should have had powers. He should have went after the Night King. He should have fought the Night King. Unless his power was more subtle, where his power should have been, I put people in the right places to be at the right time. And if they did that, then you can go back and say, oh, wow, this guy's power is better than we thought, you know? So he put Arya in it. He made it so that the Night King was so sure of victory that he ends up dying by Arya. He put Arya in the right spot. He put the Red Woman to tell Arya, you know, you're going to kill someone with green eyes or blue eyes, and so she then gets influenced. He put her in a place in Braavos where she learned the skills that she needed to learn to do. He put her in this is when you start saying, oh, this guy's a master chessman. That makes sense. But if you never say that, if you never develop it, then your people are expecting him to go blow by blow in power, then there's nothing.
But no, it was
that's
also,
my problem.
I'm saying, yeah, that makes sense. Why I'm going with legitimacy is because when you look in history, when they had an illegitimate king who was logical, the people still struggle with him being illegitimate.
Yes.
And the idea of an heir. So it's like that aspect is not going to go away from the people because you had to really somehow get them out of the way they're thinking. Because even even in as much as I know of history doing American culture, they weren't necessarily happy when they're throwing in the Declaration of Independence and saying you have this. They're like, no, we're not, and they're like, no, we're going to follow this.
No, so, you're right.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not that easy to go to the people, and I'm saying what you highlighted makes a lot of sense, but then it's more like, it's almost, it's sorry to say, it feels like it's tokenism. It's like saying, hey, let's give the person who, let's offer it. He's not taking the rule. The thing is, like,
but he is taking the rule.
They're giving it to him.
They're giving it to him, but what does he have back?
No, becoming the rule.
His armies, John's armies and Sansa's armies, the Northerners come south.
He should say it, not the guy.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying
he should be talking.
Right. So
what's the thing? They're yapping and he's not saying anything.
Right. But what I'm trying to say, I get what you're saying.
You can't fight me on the fact that
I'm not fighting you, but I'm not disagreeing with you.
Because he didn't say enough to make a difference.
Sense. Yeah,
at least the other guy stood up, even though they got shut down. They say, "Yo, sit your ass down." Like at least he stood up for it. It's not about the standard. It's about him rolling up there and saying, "You know what? I'm the guy. I know what to do." And this little guy's dying right now.
I know, and he's like, yeah, that's okay. I mean, you're right. He was just in like Catacon, yeah. I should be king. I knew I was going to be king. I'm like, that's so whack. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say? Or you're right. He should have said something for himself. You know why? He should step away. Everybody's like, why is this guy stepping up? Yo, the reason I'm going to be king is because I'm going to tell you, I planned everything. This is exactly how the road went down.
Yes.
And
then the thing, if you got to a point where it's like, all right, there's a scene where it's even harder to do this, but in the end, then they gave us a diplomacy scene, right? A scene after that, where they basically give us the last scene in the Batman movie, where people just arguing, the state officials just arguing, and they're showing that, all right, this is just business as usual. Like, no.
That was horrible. I agree with you. So, I mean, the whole point, if you're going to do this new thing, and yet the scene basically is the beginning scene of what started in the series, where you have the small council and they're talking about petty stuff to begin with, as opposed to saying, how do we build this up? It's basically the same thing, and it seems like the series is going to continue again.
I'm going back to my first thing. Dragon Lady, you did your thing. You should have just killed Jon Snow because he's lame anyway. And you explain to me what Jon Snow's doing, because he looked happy. And he's like,
he never wanted to rule, so that's one of the reasons.
So he was a lame from the beginning.
So one of the things is that you understood that since he never wanted to rule, he was always, they always said, you're of the North. So he wanted to go back. He's a hands-on guy. He's not a general. As we can see, there were two great battles that he didn't exactly.
He should have died in a couple of those battles when he was buried under them people.
Hell, he should have died when he got stabbed. So the whole point, but this is where I go back to the whole thing, is that if we can show that Bran helped to revive him, help to put him in separate, help get different people to follow through. Then it comes up, the story is much more rich and more layered in that you see his power. His power isn't the power to, I'm trying, the equivalent in the Marvel universe. Your power isn't the power to actually do an actual event right now, but to influence the event as it continues. And there's a character, I keep forgetting, it's at the tip of my tongue, whose power is, he goes and influences.
The Watcher?
I was thinking the Watcher, but there was another character. And then that comes bigger, because then you start seeing, behind all these scenes, and not Apocalypse, there's someone pushing just a nudge. So now since that was a nudge, this happened here. This over here, a word, and the word changes what it is, And it's just interesting. And I again, my disappointment was that, according to the author, this is what was supposed to be. Bran was always going to be king. I have no problems with that, but from A to Z, you missed out some steps. And the author did say that, we needed more seasons. And he's right, but it didn't help that he wasn't writing stuff, because there was like 2 or 3 seasons where nothing was moving. There was no movement in the story. There was no movement in the series. And so now they had to just rush everything in the last two.
But I mean, why would you stop? It's not a DVD box set.
They want to do something else. They were doing it for 10 years, and they didn't want to do it anymore.
Maybe
you know what I'm trying to say?
That makes sense.
I mean, it grew from a small $10 or $20 million budget to over $100 million budget, and you're like, yo, for the whole, and that's all you do, because it's so huge, and you're on 3 continents working on different shows. You're in Ireland, you're in Croatia, you're in Spain, in Africa, and then you're doing stuff in Europe. And they want to do something else, and that's why there's a petition now for people to stop them from doing the New Republic movies for Star Wars. You know, I had this T-shirt for Star Wars. So,
I
but
mean, what is the New Republic thing?
the New Republic
is that the old?
The Old Republic. Sorry, the Old Republic, where it takes the video games and they bring up, and some of that's there's some lore there, and I think the problem that we had with these writers, and they're not necessarily Benioff and David Benioff and what's the other guy's name? I forgot his name. You know, Dan and Dave, is that, you know, they were using a source material that was not complete, and so they had to then, you know, normally there's a beginning, middle, and the end, but when you're going through a story and it's only in the middle, stops in the middle, you're like, what do I do from there? And that's why there's some divergence in what the story actually is, and why, you know, some of the foreshadowing you had in the beginning had to be dropped because you couldn't, the story wasn't continuing, you know, but that's where, again, I have to kind of blame them, and I kind of blame George. That when you do these stories, you have to lay it out. Yes, they knew what the end product was, but they didn't know the middle and beginning. And part of George Martin's stories is going into the stories and you're getting the answers. He gives you answers before the questions even asked. Yeah. He gives you stories about things that happened that are real. They give you two stories and you got to figure out which one is the correct one. And that's one of the great things about reading his novels, you know? Okay. So look, overall, I would not give it, I was highly disappointed, but you know, it gave me the battle scenes, it gave me the story that I want. Not the story that I want, it gave me a story, a version of the story. I'm hoping it'll be a little bit different, but I'll give it a B-, and that's extremely generous. A C is probably where it's going to be at for me.
Well, as you know, I've been, you know, missing every name possible in this story, so I've been watching on the outskirts, and I've, you know.
Were you entertained in watching the final?
I didn't like the final episode, and that really bugged me. That basically they had one character who should have no power in the scene, had all the power. Yeah. Been in jail for who knows how long.
No,
basically says, here you go, you're the king now. He's the next one. And like, can we even vote? Someone say, can we vote on this? Because I'm not with this. Is everybody going? And then they did have a little vote, and there's one person who said no, and it's just like, come on.
Well, they did the bad job. Again, the explanation they gave is that two of the characters, the one Gendry, who the Dragon Queen Dany had made into a lord, and Yara, who in another story she had said you can become a queen yourself. Those two were against it, but they voted to stay. You know, I guess. And they should. I think they should have done a better job explaining. Well, this is war ravaged, and everybody's like, you know what? We're just too tired to continue to fight. We'll just go on this guy. But one key thing you got to understand about this whole story is, the wolves won. Sansa gets her independence, right? Bran is a northerner, so he's a king. So the wolves won. They took over the kingdom. It's like Scotland coming down, knocking out the British king. And they're running the stuff. Even though, remember, the North only...
Talking about, what's the name? Outlander, yes.
Outlander?
That's what Outlander's about. You never watch Outlander?
But they didn't take over England.
No, but the whole point is being time travel. They know that they're possibly losing, but they might change history. They're not sure. But
I didn't realize they changed it.
No, I mean, they've been hinting close. They've been trying to change it, figure things out. But, you know, I think we're done with the second season. We're on to the third. So.
Well, I mean, hey, you could always do what they did with not Rob Roy, the one with the guy from Lethal Weapon. What was the name of that stuff? He did that Scottish movie.
Oh, you mean Braveheart?
Braveheart, where they pretend that Braveheart got the girl pregnant, and so the kingdom, the British line is now based off of Braveheart. Oh, yeah, which we know is not true, but that's they do something like that. You're like, oh well, you know, Queen Elizabeth is really not of German stock, but of, you know, good old Scottish stock. You know what I'm trying to say? That explains why she has a castle in Scotland. You know. And they know that's their secret. Every year they come and bathe in the waters. Wow. But yeah, I'm just saying that's a possibility. Look, we as creators and we as writers know that, you know, people have visions, and this is the vision that they had. And unfortunately, you can't. The interpretation of a vision, if you're displaying it to the character to the populace, we have a right to also criticize. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't take away the vision of what you think should have gone. I just take away the way you interpret it or how you displayed it to us. You know, a story should have, to me, again, this is the problem some people have with Endgame. You know, the story, when you convey it, doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Understand?
The thing that I have issue with is a lot of talking which they had a lot of talking in that last
Wrap up.
episode.
It's a wrap up. It's understandable. It's a wrap up.
No. This is when you get to the last page of the comic book and there's a ton of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
This was what that was.
Yes.
But if you explain the comic in the beginning, you only had to do it for the last couple of panels, not the last 3 pages. Or the thing is, like, you had the one issue, then issue 12, they had to explain everything. And that's the first issue. The second issue is going to, okay, she killed too many people. So now that's not considered something a king would do. Yes, it's something a king would. That doesn't mean you immediately get ousted. And then going for the diplomatic thing and saying this person who can't give us an heir should be king, because this. And that's the thing. The logic of having mad heirs goes past that time. So, like, they didn't stop the mad heirs, like people having kids that are incompetent and not good kings. It didn't stop past the point that they're in the. So it's like you're solving something that can't be solved.
No, I see your point, but
So just do the story you want to do. Don't just sit around and say, we're going to have a democracy. This is how democracy was created, and everyone did, and we picked a good choice. We made the best choice, and then the people are going to decide too. So you're going to throw that in there?
I know they say,
like, come on.
Like, how do you get them to decide?
Who wants to listen to the people? They're freaking nobodies. We love them and we want them to live, but hey, pay. Render unto Caesar. Like, get out of here. They're there for the kingdom. They're not there for themselves.
I think it's going to be coming out very differently in the book. He's saying he'll have the last book out.
Ooh, so then we got to say, this is how it should have been done. Like,
I think
Zack
they're gonna
Snyder's
have to
version
redo
of
the whole
Justice League.
They're gonna have to redo the whole story. I personally.
What? So you mean they'll be able to redo it and have fun?
This
again?
is the way it should have been done.
Be like Stephen King. He does
Pet Sematary.
He's done some TV movies of his stuff where, the thing, people look at Shining and say Shining is the best, when ultimately The Shining uses some bits of it, and basically it's a logical horror movie, because as much Jack Nicholson does, he gets bopped in the head and he gets dragged into a freezer and gets locked up, because and that's how it really would happen. Like, you're trying to kill me, but you're human. I hit you in the head, you're knocked out. I drag you from one end to the floor to the end, you might wake up, but you won't have the strength to free yourself before I close the door. And it's like, no, in a horror movie, person would wake up by that time and kill you, but there's only one person to kill, the woman and the kid, so they played it logically. But people consider that the best, and Stephen King is like driving his nails into the Stanley Kubrick thing, saying, he's not doing my story. Anyway. Yeah. So that's what George R.R. Martin will do when he does his own version. But no, he's been loving it. He's like, do whatever you want. I'm making money. I got girls, he said the champagne's in the fridge, Well,
I don't know if you heard, Harry Potter's writer just kidding. She's gonna have 4 new stories of Harry Potter.
Hey, why would you stop? I'm okay with it.